Let's take a trip back to English Lit. Oh god, I hate this class. Hey! Pipe down, Dean. Stop passing notes between you and Jamal. You know what? Why don't you come up to the front of the class, and why don't you read that note to all of us?
It says, this serves as an immunity idol. It can only be played with 9 people left or 6 people left. Does it look exactly like? Absolutely not. So it's a bit risky, but if I can get by with that, this one will still be left in my pocket.
This is not an advantage and has absolutely no power. Any votes cast for Dean will still count.
Okay, what is a theme? What's in a theme? Is it the giant face statues supplanted on a beach in Fiji? Or are those just symbols? What about 2 former players being given a survivor school beach hotel all to their own with lectures and all? Or is that just a motif? Maybe it's Sandra telling us a woman is gonna win this season. I mean, look at all the idols they found. No, that's just foreshadowing. Oh, it's the idea that 2 former winners know better, and they're here to educate all of us on what it takes to be a better Survivor player. I am so confused. Can I just get my advantage now? Ladies and gents, internet, my name is Peridiam, and let's rank every theme in Survivor. I have 20 themes in this video series, so it's imperative that we just get right to it. I want to quickly say some format changes or twists won't be included in my ranking because I couldn't figure out what to make of them. And I don't think Redemption Island really meant anything beyond Rob versus Russell needing a safety net because we just paid big bucks and I don't want them leaving in like episode 2. Ah, crap. Anyway, here's number 20. Of the 20 themes in this ranking, I would dare to say, I think only one of them is outright not good at all. And it's this one, number 20, Survivor Fiji, privilege versus poverty. Poverty. Haves versus have-nots.
Goblets and cutlery, couple of hammocks, a bush shower, and a nice, soft, comfortable couch. Losers will go to a new beach where you will find 1 pot and 1 machete. And that's it.
It's not a great idea, and it didn't work. And I have voiced this opinion so many times on this channel, and I don't think I have ever received any pushback for it. So I challenge you, give me pushback. What happens when you have 1 tribe with all the fixins and another tribe with less than 3 Doritos to split between 9 people? 1 tribe on this season had a luxury shelter with toilet paper and proper seating and a beachside view. The other lived in squalor in a cave. They didn't even get a mint on their rock pillow. And they were completely blown out of the water in the challenges because they were so deprived in comparison to their competition. Exploring the theme of what happens when half the cast is privileged and flush with amenities while the other half gets nothing is way too imbalanced from a game perspective, and from a narrative perspective, I don't think it's worth exploring when the answer is totally obvious. Number 19. Speaking of imbalance, I think I'm about to get some feedback with this next one, but hear me out. Number 19 is fans versus favorites. But Peridiam, there were 2 of them. Which one? You must mean Caramoan, right? No. I mean both of them. I mean the concept and idea and theme of pitting inexperienced, youthful, wide-eyed rookies against a cast of some serious veteran returning players. Similar to haves versus have-nots, the idea is too imbalanced, and gee, I wonder what happens when you pit the Boston Red Sox against a group of their fans. I wish I had a clip about that.
You could be a fan of the Boston Red Sox, man, but you don't want to play against the Boston Red Sox. You're going to get your ass handed to you.
Ah, thank you, Penner. It's one thing to have these returning players somehow maybe serve as mentors, educating them, kind of like Rob and Sandra, but to compete against them, and there's 10 of them? Both times this theme was explored, it led to one-sided shutouts, and I don't think we need to really see it again, even though I will admit it is kind of fun to watch our favorites return, regardless of the reasons why. It's easy to market. Number 18. Another big time hitter that did not work for me was the theme of David versus Goliath. Now, we have to divorce ourselves from how much we liked the season because, as you guys may know, I gave it a perfect 10. Yet, the theme is down here at 18 out of 20. I briefly mentioned this in my review, but the idea of underdogs versus overdogs or top dogs is just too heavy-handed for my liking. I don't want to be spoon-fed underdogs. Because We all root for them. I want them to emerge from a place of equal footing. This show is a game, and while I'm glad the Davids weren't actually made to be underdogs with the lack of experience or being placed in a dank cave while the Goliaths were given like a 5-star hotel built by Boston Rob, it does narratively feel awkward and just too contrived. Kind of like how you would instantly root for your favorites over any fan, you would too root for the Davids over the Goliaths, unless you have no heart. Because that's what we do. We root for the little guys. Except in the game of Survivor, they're not really little at all, as we saw. And so, yeah, I'm just kind of not sold.
As I look at the other tribe, I have the biggest smile on my face. The cards are just stacked completely in our favor, and I want to take full advantage of that.
So the question every day is the same. It's not who has the advantage, it's what is the advantage. That's the theme we're going to explore this season. This is Survivor, David versus Goliath.
Number 17. I think some may be surprised that this theme, number 17, didn't come up sooner because if its name is anything to go by, it's gotta be dead last. The theme is, wait for it, heroes versus healers versus hustlers. I hope the Survivor marketing team did not pull a muscle with that major stretch of an idea. Similar to Brain, Brawn, Beauty, the X versus Y versus Z format tries to find 3 different distinct traits about people and then, of course, pit them against one another to see which will prevail. The problem I have with HVH is that it's entirely too vague. Way more vague than the previous iterations, and I can't make sense of what it's trying to explore. People who hustle a lot in their day-to-day jobs, a surfer, a bellhop, an assistant for a YouTuber. Connect the dots. You may run out of ink. For the heroes, we have an ex-Marine, okay, an ex-NFL player, right, and an actuary. Wait, what? I think Chrissy was supposed to be like the heroic mother figure, right? I mean, she's my hero, but heck, even I kind of want to see her on the villains tribe whenever we get around to that. Basically, I could spend all day here trying to put together what this means. I've spent more time questioning how to even define this theme than I have exploring it, and I think that's because we don't really need to dig too deep here to get anywhere. But again, I will just say at least the tribes were on equal footing. Number 16. Speaking of not needing to dig deep, that's my prevailing disappointment with both the number 16 and 15 themes. Number 16 is the theme of Millennials versus Generation X, or basically division by generation. A cluster of players from one predetermined generation versus another.
My generation, it's all about doing what you want to do. And I've done a lot. Beekeeper, I've brewed beer, snowboard instructor, gone to North Dakota.
On paper, I am highly amused by the idea of ham-fisting texting habits into living on a beach with no food or shelter amidst a group of other players all scheming behind your back. You know, it just doesn't scratch the surface. Does being from an older generation make a difference in the context of Survivor? What about a younger generation? As it turns out, I don't know if it does or think it does or really think it matters. Which brings me to also then number 15, which is the theme of division by age. Instead of pitting generations against one another, we just pit older folk versus younger folk. Less about the culture around these players as they were growing up, and more about just being older and maybe wiser, or younger and more adaptable, less set in your ways. Both number 16 and 15 share an important commonality, and while I can somewhat see why probing the idea of wisdom versus youth on the show, I think Survivor really is more kind of built for younger folk. It's very physically taxing, and I think this is more so presented as a game designed for the young. So while it's not the worst theme ever, it's not at the bottom, I'm still not that excited by it. And I kind of hope we don't ever really see it again, like baby boomers versus Generation Z. Oh god. The memes would be endless. Number 14 and number 13 are tied closely together too, similar to 15 and 16. Number 14 is brains versus brawn versus beauty, while number 13 is white collar versus blue collar versus no collar. Similar to heroes versus healers versus hustlers. Wow, these themes are a mouthful. I have them in the bottom half of my ranking because they explore very light themes that I just don't think are very compelling. Brain, Brawn, Beauty is asking which attribute does the best, being book smart, street smart, or no smart? For at least one of those 2 seasons, the answer may shock you. But really, does relying on your brain make you better for the game, or relying on your muscle, or relying on your looks? It's a bit like that strategic versus physical versus social game that many fans outline as the 3 tenets of Survivor, which is kind of fun and maybe worth a peek. Ultimately though, I just don't think it's all that applicable because the show won't ever really be able to tell us. Like, take Tony, for example, who was the winner of the very first one of these theme seasons, was a brawn, but he never won an immunity challenge and instead concocted several brainy, ingenious moves. So, okay, a brawn wins the game, but would it be better to say that he was like a brain winning the game because of what he did? And what about his beautiful llama social game? On the other hand, then you have Michelle, who I would argue was all social game. But then you have Mike Holloway, who clearly was on the blue-collar brawn tribe and totally physically dominated his way to the end. Social and strategic game be damned. The collar theme attempted to explore job titles similar to heroes, healers, and hustlers, I think, and I do like that idea more, if only because your job can very much define your MO and approach. But I still think it can't be explored on the show all that well, because at the end of these seasons, I don't know what the heck to make of any of this. It is an attempt to dig deeper, and I appreciate these attempts, but I can't tell you anything was gleaned in the end.
I was an NFL cheerleader. I don't want to sound like super conceited, but from a guy, I usually get what I want.
I've been a police officer up in Jersey City for 13 years. I'm always jumping over cars, climbing over fences, jumping from roof to roof, chasing people. So this game to me should be easy. Knock on wood.
Number 12. On the flip side of fans versus favorites, or David versus Goliath, we have a theme that I think many may be surprised is even this high. It's the theme of Survivor Cook Islands, dividing the cast by race and seeing if any particular race of person makes much of a difference in the context of the game. I have this theme this high and not higher because I think it's a rather deep subject to explore, and that's pretty much it as far as why it's this high. It's above most of the themes below it because I don't think that the themes below it have nearly as much to contribute. How does race affect a player or a tribe in the game? Does it matter? What does it mean to be Asian American or African American or Caucasian or really anything? I think it's obviously a very risky and touchy subject that probably, again, can't really be solved, but similar to the idea of division by job, there is a potential for a powerful discussion and analysis to be had, I think.
I honestly was stunned. I mean, this is crazy. I mean, on one hand, I think it's a great opportunity because I think it's wonderful that there's more minorities. At the same time, I'm a little bit worried that it might play out to caricatures and stereotypes. So, I don't know, it'll be interesting to see how things play out.
Mind you, this isn't me critiquing Cook Islands the season, just it's the theme that was employed. Although, that being said, I think one noticeable defining conclusion to be made was that no, pretty much anyone can excel in Survivor. It's not any one race. I personally think that if you even out the diversity in casting, you might see more diverse winners, but that's a different story removed from this theme. So while I think it has potential to be worthwhile and to inspire meaningful discussion, race is a very important part of all of our identities. I do also wonder if it's necessary to be a part of a theme and not just something that is naturally explored without having to make it an over-encompassing part of a season. Number 11. And you know what? This is part 1. Let's just keep going. Number 10. Another doubleheader with 2 themes that are very similar to one another. Number 11 is the theme of division by age, wait for it, mixed with gender. And number 10 is then going to be just dividing the tribes by gender, regardless of age. And there is a distinction between the two of them. Men versus women, who prevails? What about older men versus older women versus younger men versus younger women? What about middle-aged? Okay, I'll stop.
There was the young beefcake crowd, of which I was charter member and president. And then there was the Love Boat crowd, which was the older men. There were the Golden Girls, and then there was the Spice Girls. It'll be interesting to see how things shake out.
I think gender is perhaps the most engaging to me of all these division themes, be it age, generation, race, gender, job title, experience. Gender to me is a bit more fascinating and something that I think we can all relate to whether we fit into the usual men versus women or not. We have come a long way from the Amazon. I think the eternal debate of gender, of motherhood, of fatherhood, Mars, Venus, and even how it can relate to age too is more fitting for the game of Survivor. And I have it just a smidge bit higher than the other divisional themes. All male or female alliances are brought up constantly. Some have even dominated seasons, and is there something to that? Is it worth exploring why? Perhaps it's a simple answer, but then are there aspects of the game that one gender may excel at over the other? Or not even excel at, just notice more, utilize more, respond to differently? Don't get me wrong, I'm not entirely sold on all of these divisional themes, largely why they are all mostly in my bottom half of this ranking, but I think that they all have the potential to raise lots of good questions with maybe insightful answers. And after all that's said and done, that's going to be part 1 of 2 of my complete ranking of the season themes in Survivor. I think we've had a lot of overlap with many of the themes in this video, the divisions and recurring trends. Personally, I think that most of the themes in part 1 aren't really all that great in the context of the game of Survivor. I get why most of them have happened, but it's really the gender divide at number 10 in my ranking that I start to warm up to the ideas presented to us and how they apply to the show. And as you can tell, some of the big season themes have yet to be ranked, so wait for part 2. It is a doozy. Let me know what you think about these themes in part 1 and what you expect for part 2. But until then, my name is Peridiam saying thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed part 1. Don't forget to arrange your relatives by if they're a hero, a healer, or a hustler at the family holiday dinner table. And I will see you in part 2 once I figure out exactly which of these divided tribes do I get placed in. Oh god. Oh god, I'm a brain, aren't I?
The Brain Tribe. With an average IQ of 130, this group utilizes their intellect to accomplish their goals.
How did we come up with the criteria for brains? I'd like to see that data.